Being a marketer's no sweat. You just have to manage dozens of channels, launch hundreds of campaigns, score thousands of leads, and okay, fine, it's a lot of sweat. Unless you have HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools to help you do all that and more. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
Craven the Hunter, who uses all the methods of the animals.
On December 13th.
Once you're on his list, there's only one way off.
Are you like your father?
He puts evil into the world. I get rid of people like him.
Who's next?
Witness the making of a new Marvel villain.
You think you have some kind of honor. You're a criminal, just like our father.
Aaron Taylor Johnson is Craven the Hunter. Rated R. Under 17 on a minute without parent. In theaters December 13th.
We're into the business month of the season, and it's Detroit and Kansas City who top the conferences with 11-1 records. Famous Jameis throws for nearly 500 yards, but gives away 2 pick sixes as Denver's postseason challenge continues under Bo Nix. Matt Eberflus is out in Chicago, while the Jags, Raiders, Giants and Patriots are all officially eliminated from playoff contention. What lies ahead? Well, let's find out as we turn the page and look ahead to Week 14 in the NFL.
Graves on Gridiron with Richard Graves.
Hello, welcome along to the show. This is Graves on Gridiron. I am your host, Richard Graves, and what a week of NFL action we had for Thanksgiving week over in the States. As for the show, well, we went 1-2 against the line, a week that started well with the Chargers getting the job done and covering the spread in Atlanta, soon went south because although the Buccaneers did get past the Panthers in overtime, it wasn't to cover the spread. It was by just the 3 points. And the Baltimore Ravens, well, they had kicker issues, didn't they? Justin Tucker, 2 missed field goals and a missed extra point as they were downed at home to the Philadelphia Eagles. What does that mean for the season? Well, on the season, our record is now an even 500, 18 wins, 18 losses against the line. But we're into December. It's the business end of the season, and this is where you get the job done. And that's what we intend to do here on Graves on Gridiron. If you are new to the show, glad to have you with us. Better to join us late than never. Each week, we pick 3 games from the slate on offer in the NFL. I dissect those games, break down the matchups, and then tell you which way I think it's going to go, as opposed to what the line is that's been set by the odds makers. This week is no different. We have 3 more games for you. The first one on paper might not seem the most mouth-watering contest, but there's a lot to get into in it as we start with the Jacksonville Jaguars and a 2-10 record going to Tennessee to take on their divisional AFC South rivals, the Tennessee Titans, who themselves have just a 3-9 record. The Titans, 3.5-point favorites at home to the Jags. And let's not dress this matchup into something it isn't. Let's be upfront and honest. These are 2 bad teams, folks, that are meeting this weekend. But one has a starting QB available and the other doesn't. Jacksonville's season slipped from bad to worse last weekend when they took on board another defeat, but also saw the face of their franchise, Trevor Lawrence, their starting quarterback, carted from the field with concussion following a late hit, which has resulted in a 3-game unpaid suspension for the Houston Texans defensive player in question. Lawrence may now miss the remainder of the season. In his absence, Mac Jones, well, let's be honest again, he has hardly lit up this Jags offense in the games he's played this year. And somehow last Sunday, they managed to get to 20 points in that defeat to Houston. But before that, they scored 6 points with Mac Jones at quarterback against the Detroit Lions. And a week before that, they scored just 7 points against a Minnesota Vikings team who allowed them to hang around. And those 7 points against the Vikings came on home turf in Jacksonville. It's been a tough season, a tough watch if you're a Jags fan without question. Now, in contrast to that, the Titans, clearly by their record, haven't been much better, but they do have their gunslinging quarterback available. Will Levis might not have lived up to expectations this year, but he is still capable of making plays. And if the Titans can stop turning the ball over, if they can get out of their own way, they will win this game. That's been one of their biggest issues, though, this season. The 23 times in 12 games they've just given the ball back to their opponents. That puts them 31st in the NFL for giving the ball away. And without doubt, It'll be an area the Jags are hoping to capitalize on this weekend. However, Tennessee have the NFL's number 1 ranked passing defense. And despite their poor overall record, that defensive unit still ranks number 2 in total defense this season. The Jags are dead last when it comes to total defense. They're last in passing defense, 30th in points allowed. They're only 27th when it comes to takeaways. That means only 5 other teams in the NFL have taken the ball away on fewer occasions than the Jacksonville Jaguars have done this season. The Jags are a team who don't put points on the board. Their only 2 wins have come at home to Indy and at Wembley against the Patriots. Let me put this as simply as I can. Tennessee just aren't as bad as the Jacksonville Jaguars are right now. The Titans are 3.5-point favorites. There is nothing in this game that tells me that the Jags can keep up with the Titans if they can put points on the board. Take the Titans to win. Take Tennessee to cover at minus 3.5.
Graves on Gridiron.
Next up, we have the Chicago Bears with a 4-8 record, traveling to the West Coast to take on the San Francisco 49ers. They are 5-7 coming into this week's game, and I'm already looking at the total points line for this game. It's set at 44 total points combined between these two teams. And you have to say, going into it, the sky has somewhat fallen in on the San Francisco 49ers. They were already in a hole prior to last weekend's defeat in snowy Buffalo. That loss also saw them lose not 1, but 2 running backs, Christian McCaffrey and Jordan Mason. They're both gone for the rest of the season. I'll admit, a 5-7 record doesn't rule the 49ers out of the NFC West right now, but really, it's difficult to see how they climb back into the playoff race from here. So probably the last team you want to face, if you're in a hole and a predicament like the San Francisco 49ers find themselves in right now, is a young, hungry team with a high-caliber defense and a rookie quarterback who is seemingly growing up in front of our very eyes. Now, true, I get it. The Bears have found different ways to lose in recent weeks, and that has cost Matt Eberflus his job as head coach of the Chicago Bears. But there's a tenacity, a tenacious quality about Chicago and quarterback Caleb Williams that you just can't help but admire. That has translated into spirited second-half comebacks against the Green Bay Packers, the Minnesota Vikings, and the Detroit Lions over the past month. What it hasn't done is translate into wins on the field. Now, if anyone can devise an offensive game plan, it is, of course, the 49ers head coach, Kyle Shanahan. Remember, this is a man who once won a playoff game against the Green Bay Packers while only attempting 10 passing plays in a game. However, this year's version of the San Francisco 49ers are depleted on both sides of the ball. And if they are going to win this matchup, they're going to need to dominate time of possession. They're going to need to keep this game tight. And with that in mind, I think this is likely to be a defensive battle. I think both teams are conscious of playing mistake-free football. I think both teams are conscious that they don't want to end up costing themselves the game. That has been their Achilles heel for the Chicago Bears over the last month. And of Chicago's last 6 games, only 1 has resulted in 44 or more total points. That was a 30-27 loss in overtime to the Minnesota Vikings. The 49ers have conceded at least 20 in each of their last 5, but they haven't scored more than 23 in any of their last 4 outings. This is not going to be a shootout at Levi Stadium, but don't be surprised if the Chicago Bears pull off an upset. This might be the dark horse pick for the weekend. I'm not going to quite go there, but I am going to look at that total points line. 44 points is too many over 60 minutes for these two teams playing each other. Take the under 44 total points when the Chicago Bears and San Francisco 49ers meet on Sunday. Okay, that's 2 of the 3 games that we've looked at for this week. There is a big AFC West encounter coming up as well. We're taking a look at that next after these short messages.
Graves on Gridiron.
If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge. From worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Okay, welcome back to Graves on Gridiron. We've already looked at the Jags and Titans and the Bears and 49ers, but the game that catches my eye this weekend is the Los Angeles Chargers at 8-4, traveling to Arrowhead Stadium to take on the reigning Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs, with a record that is tied for the best in the NFL at 11-1, and the Chiefs find themselves as 4-point favorites coming into this game. This is a huge game in the context of the AFC West, and one which is likely to be very different to the 17-10 Chiefs win we saw over the Chargers back in Week 4. On that occasion, the Chargers were missing a number of key players. Well, this time, most of those key players are available, and this time, the Chargers go into this matchup playing good football. In fact, their only defeat in their last 6 outings came against the Baltimore Ravens. Even when they weren't at their best last weekend, they were still too good for the Atlanta Falcons, who were playing at home, coming off a bye week. They couldn't handle the Chargers. Now, let's not get carried away here, folks. The Chiefs, of course, are still the Chiefs. They hold the best record in football. They're tied with the Detroit Lions at 11-1. But they do appear to be creaking just a little bit. And this has been a season which almost defies belief in the way they've managed to churn out win after win and find different ways to win games. On Thanksgiving Day, the Las Vegas Raiders appeared to have their measure. The clock's ticking down. They're inside field goal range. The vast majority of the capacity crowd inside Arrowhead Stadium were falling silent. They were fearing the worst. Only for Vegas to literally put the ball on the ground and allow a turnover on a backward pass. They let the Chiefs off the hook. Kansas City's last 5 wins have all been less than 1 score. That's what I mean when I say they're finding ways to eke out wins. And they're doing it in different ways as well. You know, you think of the blocked field goal against the Denver Broncos. Now you think of the way the Thanksgiving Day game finished as well. You're coming up against a Chargers team who come here and they specialize in playing close, tight, tense, physical, hard-nosed football. They will not back down, and they hold the number 1 ranked scoring defense in the National Football League. This Chargers team allow a fraction under 16 points per game on average this season. The Chiefs, well, their defense is also tight. They give up under 20 points per game. So if high-scoring football's your thing, with the scoreboard being lit up, this match probably isn't going to be for you. And that's why seeing the odds makers give either of these two teams a 4-point start appears to just be nuts to me. In all likelihood, this match may well come down to who holds the ball last, and it may well be decided by a last-second field goal. And then I'm going to throw into the equation the law of averages. I keep talking about it. The Chiefs have won a lot of games this year, in all manner of different ways. But just about every game's come down to the final drive of the game. Whether that's a game-winning drive by the Chiefs or their defense making a stand, as good as they are, no team can prevail every time in this scenario. This week's opponents aren't going to buckle in a tight game. They aren't a mentally fragile group. They love the heat of battle. Make no mistake, this encounter isn't going to be for the faint-hearted. The Chargers come in here prepared for a fight. It's going to be feisty. It's going to be fiery. It's going to be competitive. One thing it certainly won't be is a blowout win for either side. So if you're telling me that Los Angeles Chargers go into Arrowhead and you're giving them a 4-point start, take the Chargers to cover at plus 4 points. And you never know. They might even cause the upset and get a big divisional win over the Super Bowl champs as well. But it's the Chargers for me at plus 4. Okay, let's recap the 3 games we're looking at Week 14 in the NFL. We start with the AFC South encounter. The Jags go to the Titans. 2 teams enduring a torrid season. The Titans are 3.5-point favourites. I think they win this one and they win it big. They cover at minus 3.5. Then it's the Bears going into the Bay Area to take on the 49ers. I don't think this is going to be a high-scoring game at all, folks. The line for total points is 44. Take under 44 points in this game before we finish out at Arrowhead Stadium. The Chargers and the Chiefs doing battle. The Chargers are getting a 4-point start against the Chiefs. This is going to be a close game. The Chargers don't deal in big scoring blowout games this season. At +4, you take the Chargers to cover at +4. As I always say at this point, remember first and foremost, it's about enjoyment, it's about fun, it's about watching these games and having something just add a little bit more spice to it. Keep that in mind. If you want to read a little bit more about the 3 games we've spoken about on this week's pod, you can do so by going to my website, www.rdgmedia.uk. Click on that Talking Sport tab, and there you will see NFL Week 14, Overcoming the Odds, 3 games to watch. All 3 games are broken down in that blog there. Equally, let me hear from you on social media. On X, it's at RichardGraves1, RDG Media UK on Instagram, or you can go to Facebook and get in touch with us there. Again, Richard Graves, RDG Media, if that is your preferred method to communicate on. We are down to the business end of the season now. Teams are being ruled out of postseason contention. Teams are battling to stay in postseason contention. It's getting tense, it's getting tight, but most of all, it's getting exciting. I hope you enjoy this week, folks. I'm certainly looking forward to it. But for now, so long, everybody.
Subscribe to Graves on Gridiron wherever you listen to podcasts.
And keep up to date with the latest on Twitter. Search for Richard Graves 1.
That's Richard Graves, the number 1.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.